This lesson is on the difference of squares. So when we do these warm-up questions, they are setting you up to see this product that's called the difference of squares. So let's take a look. X times x is x squared. X times x. Then we're going to distribute the x to the -4. And we get -4x. And we can now take the 4 and distribute that to the x and get plus 4x. And then we distribute the 4 to the -4 and we get -16. So now we combine like terms and we're going to get x squared minus 16. Well, notice that both of these terms, so the x squared and 16 are both perfect squares. Okay? So what is this minus sign doing in the middle? That is where you have the difference. Difference means subtraction. So we have the difference of squares. More about that soon, but this warm-up is to encourage you to see that when you have two factors, like 5m plus 1 and 5m minus 1, and they have different signs, one's positive, one's negative, you're going to end up with this special product called the difference of squares. So let's just practice this. You can always pause the video, do it yourself, unpause the video, and check your answer with me. But notice as I'm doing this, it's resulting in the two terms zeroing each other out. Remember, we don't cancel. We cancel checks, we cancel trips, but we don't cancel terms. We zero them out. 5m, spend that 5m, we get 0. And I'm left with 25m squared minus 1. All right, let's take a look at the next one. So again, we're going to distribute the 2a to this 2a, and we get 4a squared. We distribute the 2a to the -3b. We get -6ab, and we write it that way because standard form dictates alphabetical order. Next, we're going to distribute the 3b to the 2a, and we get plus 6ab. And the 3b to the -3b, and we get minus 9b squared. So again, the two middle terms will zero out, and we're left with 4a squared minus 9b squared. Again, you can see that both this term and this term, not including the subtraction sign, are both perfect squares. All right, so how does this look down in our notes? First, you make sure you have an actual difference of squares. Now, we're going to start talking about factoring these, okay? In the warm-up here, we were multiplying two factors to get the product difference of squares. Now we're going to talk about we're going to have the product difference of squares, but we want to factor that product out. And before you go making assumptions, just because you see something that might look like it doesn't mean you necessarily have the right conditions. So let's take a look at what these conditions are. Make sure you have it by, you have to have the subtraction sign. Don't let that plus sign fool you. And you could square root both terms. Okay? So you use the following rule to factor a squared minus b squared. You'd have an a plus b and an a minus b. You always check your work by going back and redistributing. So here, a times a is a squared. A times -b is -ab. Again, in that order because of standard form. Again, b times a is plus ab. And b times -b is -b squared. The middle two terms zero out, and you're left with a squared minus b squared, which is your original product. So here they want you to practice factoring each difference of squares. Check your work by distributing. If a polynomial cannot be factored, simply write the word prime. So let's take a look at the first one. Do we have the two conditions that we assigned above? Is there a subtraction sign? Yes, there is. Can both terms be square rooted? Yes, they can. A squared, the square root of a squared is a, and the square root of 4 is 2. So we have a situation of the difference of squares. So we're going to then take and break out our terms so that one is positive and one is negative. You have an a minus b, or a minus 2 and an a plus 2. How do we check our work? Again, we're going to distribute. A times a is a squared. A times 2 is plus 2a. Negative 2 times a is negative 2a. Negative 2 times positive 2 is minus 4. Way to go there, Mrs. Evans. All right, minus 4. So what am I left with? I'm left with a squared. These guys zero out, and minus 4. So, therefore, I know that these two factors work to create the product a squared minus 4. Okay, you guys can go ahead and practice, put your answers into the Go formative. However, when you put your answers in the Go formative, unlike my example here, I want you to put your positive answer first. So n plus 8, n minus 8, that just keeps me from having to write it in with both possibilities. You know that the commutative property of multiplication says that either way that you write these factors is acceptable, but so that I only had to write it once, I always wrote the positive term first, followed by the negative term. All right, come to me if you have questions.